Welcome to What's the Score, a series solely dedicated to the support of Central Florida's small business and entrepreneurs. Donated as a community service by AM 660 The Answer and Salem Communications. Now, here's Christopher Hart and Rich Jaeckle.
All right, welcome to What's the Score, folks, and thanks for being with us today. I am Christopher Hart of the American Adversaries, and I'm joined in the studio today, of course, with Rich Jaeckle of Score Orlando. Rich, how are you today?
I'm doing just fine. It's always a pleasure to be here with the Christopher Hart from American Adversaries.
And, of course, you and I share the pleasure these days of spending these mornings and afternoons with Paul McNally. Hey, Paul, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you, Chris?
Excellent, excellent.
I wouldn't determine that to be a pleasure.
We've got a great guest lined up for you once again today, folks. We'll get to that gentleman here in just a minute. I just want to remind you that What's the Score is the show designed to help you come up with that winning combination for your business and or enterprise. And guess what? They're there for you 5 days a week. All you have to do is make an appointment, and the best part is it is free of charge. That's right, folks. Real quick, what's the elevator speech, Rich, on Score Orlando?
Score Orlando is a nonprofit group, a national nonprofit group, actually celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, and we celebrated it here in Orlando. But it consists of volunteer consultants who help small businesses and entrepreneurs reach a successful dream. In other words, they can come in for counseling all through their growth cycle and be counseled by professionals who have actually experienced it. And we have about 65 counselors here in Orlando that are available for you entrepreneurs and you small businesses out there.
And the best part is this mentorship program is absolutely free.
Free.
That's absolutely right. And it's easy to take advantage of this, in particular here in Orlando, because they are located in the Entrepreneur Center, which is located in the Fashion Square Mall right there on McGuire and Highway East 50 in Orlando, Florida. And they're open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. You can just walk in, or if you'd like to call and make an appointment, 407-420-4844 is the number. And if you would like to go online and find out more about Score, and you can register for an appointment there as well, go to scoreorlando.org. That's scoreorlando.org. Now, they also have available online lots of documents and forms that you can use.
Templates.
Templates, that's right, as you call them. And they're there to help you set up your business before you actually go into business, and then help you carry out your business once you are in business. So it's the full deal, the full Monty, if you will, the full package.
Yeah. If you don't like the information, you can go out and buy a pair of shoes at the mall.
And but they also offer up a lot of great seminars. Now, these have a minimal charge, normally $30, but some of them are free, right, Paul?
That's correct. Our first one that we offer, where we recommend everybody to start, it's called You, Your Business Idea, and How Score Can Help. And that is a free seminar. You do not need to register in advance. You can just show up. And we've got one coming up this Tuesday, September 9th, 6 p.m., and it'll run till 9 p.m., and it's right there at the National Entrepreneur Center. You just come in. We've got 2 classrooms there, and one of them we will have this seminar. And they'll explain a little bit about our whole seminar series, which typically our seminars are $30 each. Some of them are $10 with some of our partners. But there's a number of them, and they can go to scoreorlando.org to see all of the upcoming seminars. And for those beyond the first one, they can register there.
Okay, and this particular one coming up Tuesday evening is a great one because it'll give you the overall view and direct you in the course of action you need to take advantage of Score.
Correct. It'll start questioning you on what you're planning on doing to make sure it's the right thing for you to do. Now,
Score, Rich, also does seminars elsewhere. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And how do people find out about those? Can they come to you and ask you to come to their organization, for instance, and give a presentation?
Yes, we did one last night for UCF alumni on a brief startup situation. In other words, how do I start my own business legally? And it went over pretty well. We had about 100 guests there, and we got questions and gave answers, hopefully, to these young entrepreneurs out there.
And was this at UCF or at an off-campus location?
No, it was at UCF alumni.
Okay.
UCF alumni. Paul?
Yeah, it was at the Alumni Center, the Fairwinds Alumni Center, and they had they've got a mailing list of 250,000 alumni. So there's definitely they filter that out to make sure that they don't get too many people there. But they had a great response, and most of these people knew what they wanted to do, and they were there to try to find out how to make that next step.
Yeah, how to implement it. I got a question for you, Chris.
All right.
How long have we been broadcasting now? About 3 months? 4 months?
A little over 2, I think.
A little over 2. Can you explain to me what an idea is?
That's something that
must be a Buffalo thing.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I have yet to figure that out. I can't find it in the dictionary.
Well, you have brought in a very smart gentleman with you today, Rich, so maybe he can answer that question. Let's go ahead and bring in Dr. Pete McIntire to the show. Welcome to the show today, Dr. Pete.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we want to thank you for coming in and sitting in with us today. And Dr. Pete, what kind of doctor are you?
I have a PhD in industrial engineering from the University of Central Florida.
Oh,
hey, great. Okay.
Great.
Why weren't you at the show last night?
Oh, I was at the one that you had last year and the year before and the year before.
All right. So you already gleaned all the information we could give you, huh? All right.
Most of it, but I know it's always improving, so I'm sorry I wasn't there last night, actually.
Okay.
Well, that brings to mind the question, is that where you met these guys from SCORE at a UCF alumni SCORE presentation?
It was not the alumni event itself, but it was through my contacts at UCF that I was first introduced to SCORE.
Oh, great. And how long ago was that?
15 plus years.
15 years.
And I'll say hello to Joe, who was the gentleman who helped me. Who helped me at the time.
Yep.
Okay, so that says a lot. First of all, obviously, you must be getting something out of the relationship for it to have lasted 15 years. And then, obviously, the SCORE must have a lot to offer and get something out of it as well for them to have the relationship for 15 years. Is this common, Rich?
Oh, yeah, it is common. As long as they don't meet me right up front. Relationships last for about 15 years. Yeah. But, yeah, as your business grows, you're going to need more information. It's called your growth cycles. And you have to have certain things set in place as you reach each step of that growth cycle. So if you're an entrepreneur just starting out, that's the first step, obviously, like a baby taking steps. But after a year or two, if you're still in business, then you learn how to walk and where to walk to, and you come in for more guidance. Okay, I'm up and running. I'm making a profit. What do I do?
What do you what's the
what
next
do you do?
Step? Yeah. And Pete, when you first went to SCORE, did you know exactly what you were looking for, or did the guys kind of help you hone your idea?
It was kind of both. I knew generally what I was looking for. And when I first met Joe, and Rich, I'll put you in the same bucket, there's something about wisdom versus just knowledge. So you could read all the books on marketing, but until you talk to somebody in the local area that has marketing knowledge and can share that with you at a meaningful level, you can read all the books you want, and you're not going to get the same level of interest and the same kind of traction you'd get otherwise.
Wow, that coming from a doctor, I mean like a PhD doctor, going outside your realm.
Well, and that's what I was just thinking is you said you have a PhD in industrial engineering.
That's
obviously correct. You work with gadgets and things like that.
And people and processes, yes.
Okay. And that's a long way away from marketing in a sense.
Right.
Did you take any marketing or business classes while you worked at UCF or got working toward your degree?
I did not. I had a marketing class during my undergrad days at the University of Michigan. Okay. And that's how I knew after I graduated from UCF, it was time to really understand what marketing was about from gentlemen that actually lived it.
I see. And the program at UCF, what kind of relationship did you have with the professors there, and had they ever been in the private market?
Yeah, some of them were. Some of them had knowledge. You know, a lot of professors in the industrial engineering department and probably the College of Engineering in general, they consult with a lot of outside companies or external companies. So the knowledge that they have of business and business process is very, very helpful.
But they weren't able to give you everything, and that's why you went to SCORE.
That's correct. So they didn't run their own businesses. They knew enough about it to help me understand kind of where my gaps were, and it was up to me to kind of go out and try to fill them with folks at SCORE and other places.
So you did your homework.
Yeah, you have
right
to.
Up front.
You have to. Yeah.
So you use SCORE more for the business side of setting up the actual business side of it, as opposed to the development of the product. Is that correct?
Joe helped me with a lot of things. Joe, we initially focused on marketing, and then he opened up his network to me. Yeah. He said, because, as a retired executive, you know people in town. And that's one of the greatest things that I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand, is getting connected to other people and getting a warm introduction from someone. If Joe picked up the phone and called someone on my behalf, it was a great introduction. Right, it was a meeting that I have to struggle for and fight for and call repeatedly to have. So just opening the different doors made a big difference.
And that will make a big difference in any business. Absolutely. I can testify to that, and I'm sure any other business person can as well. Yeah. Because there's been many client that I've had eyes on and never been able to get through the front door. So making contacts via other contacts is always very important. And that's something that we hadn't really talked about that SCORE has to offer, Rich.
The networking aspect of it, the referral aspect of it. Typically, we will not refer anybody unless we find that they have a real potential for surviving. Okay? Because nowadays funding is so tight, we don't want to give, our friends out there a lead that's going to go bust. So we have to be very careful, which is where Dr. Pete did his homework, and he did the research on who we needed to know and that kind of thing. And our senior counselor, Joe Lefkowitz, was able to make a connect there. And that happens all the time with promising entrepreneurs.
All right. So once again, folks, SCORE has it all, and all you have to do is take advantage of it. If you'd like to find out more on your own, go to scoreorlando.org. That's scoreorlando.org. And also, we are constantly looking for suggestions for shows from you and questions and comments. And we love the ones that we've been getting. And just send those to score@nationalec.org. That's score@nationalec.org. And the phone number at the Entrepreneur Center is 407-420-4844. And don't forget, Tuesday evening at 6, right, Paul, for that seminar?
6 o'clock?
6 to 9, and that'll be at the Entrepreneur Center. You can make a reservation, but really all you need to do is come in that night. And it'll be, the location is right between Sears and Penny's in the Fashion Square Mall. Okay, welcome back to What's the Score? Once again, thank you for being with us today. Don't forget, folks, this show is being brought to you as a public service announcement by Salem Communications. And don't forget, if you would like to find out more about how you can advertise on radio or have a radio show of your own, give Bill Files a call at 407-618-1760, 407-618-1760. Real quickly, Paul, before we get back to the doc here, tell us just a little bit, because we get a lot of questions about what should I expect from these seminars?
Well, this initial seminar is designed to explain the challenges and the risks that an entrepreneur will face. And it'll cover the reasons why so many businesses fail, as well as the keys to succeeding. So it's going to give you the basics. You'll learn what makes an idea a good business idea. It'll talk all about the ideas.
A what? One of them ideas.
You'll have to come to that show, Rich, to that seminar.
Dr. Pete McLinden, you're an industrial engineer. Did you get into industrial engineering because you have a sort of an inventor's mind? Is that what drew you to it?
That's exactly why I entered industrial engineering. I grew up tinkering with things, taking things apart, putting things together, and just have always loved to understand how things work.
Yeah. I had a girlfriend, she would get mad at her son because he was always taking things apart. And I said, no, he's learning. He's figuring out how things, he couldn't put them back together. That's what she was frustrated about. Did you have the same problem with your mom?
Yeah, yes. She would give me many things that were broken to begin with. So I had a very wise mom.
Okay. Yeah.
And she was always surprised when I kind of returned it back to her, and it's like, oh, it's working now.
Oh,
so I didn't do that. I couldn't do that with all of the things, but a lot of them I could.
Okay. For you, as an inventor, what is one of the things that you could tell other inventors out there not to do?
The thing you should not do is not develop something the world doesn't want or need.
So it may be something that you fancy.
Yes.
But it's not what everybody else would want.
So unless it's for you in your own use and so on, if it's supposed to be for the world, make sure the world wants it and demands it and likes it.
Must an inventor also think that he has to come up with something that no one's ever done before in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, no, most inventions are actually iterations of commercial products and things that are already available, sure.
Or past.
Yeah.
And isn't that the way it's always been throughout history even?
Well, no, I think there are some unique and very disruptive products that have been developed, and you see them over time. I mean, obviously, like the light bulb and things like that, things that are just so far out there.
What about the hula hoop?
Yeah, and there's another really good example.
No, I mean, the hula hoop used to be a barrel, the thing that went around the barrel.
Ring, yes.
And then they commercialized it into a toy.
Yep.
And look how much money it made it went from the barrel thing to the toy.
Paul Rich has got this thing with hula hoops.
I know. Well, he uses it for exercise now. Can't you tell from how he looks?
His waistline, yeah. Dr. Pete, when you are working on something, do you rely on sort of creative inspiration, or is it just the hands-on type thing that...
It's actually a highly iterative process for me. Usually when I have an idea, I'll get it down on paper first, or if I can develop a quick prototype of it, I will. And then I like to show it to people and not really say much to them, except just show it to them and see what they do with it. I ask them what they think it is and how they would use it, and take that knowledge and keep iterating it.
Are you afraid that somebody else will pick up on this idea?
You mean pick up on it in fact and develop it themselves and market? No.
Yeah, run with it.
I used to be, but not anymore.
Okay.
Because as an entrepreneur, when you have a passion for something and the motivation to do something, very few other people will have or share that same passion and experience that you do for that one particular product. As a matter of fact, Rich, I'm glad you asked that question. There was an entrepreneur out in California that had this idea. He said, "Please steal this from me." Here's the idea.
Please steal it.
Yeah, I think it was Fred Wilson. No, they had an idea. He said, "Here's the idea. Here's the market. We know it's huge. We know it's going to be profitable. It's yours. Take it." Guess how many people have stolen it from him or taken it from him?
I don't know.
Zero,
because nobody wanted to take the time and effort to commercialize it and bring it to this public.
That's correct.
Oh, wow.
Now, on the other side of that, when you're meeting with somebody that's asking to see your computer code for a specific thing and you're in high growth and so on and so forth, you want to be a little leery about that as to why they want it and what they're adapting it for and so on.
Oh, yeah.
But, through experience and so on, when they have their own agenda for leveraging what you have.
Dr. Pete, do you, when you're developing something, is it a secretive process?
No, not at all. It was initially, and I think I lost a lot of time because I made it that way. Had I not been so secretive when I developed my first couple of products, it would have saved me years of time.
And that's because of other people's input that you're gaining.
That's correct.
Let me ask this. I think I was watching CNBC the other morning, and I know I've read articles like this in the Wall Street Journal and maybe Business Investors Daily, speculating that perhaps the rapidity of innovation is not going to continue at the pace that it has been. Like, for instance, you had computer chips that could, double their speed every year or something like that, and that's not quite happening anymore.
Right.
Do you think that the speed of innovation will slow?
I do not. I think the biotechnology field is in its infancy. It's growing fairly quickly. I think there are sectors of any type of technology that have explosive growth capability and characteristics. So maybe in some industries it will begin to slow or has begun to slow, but other industries are just taking off from there. I mean, think about what the computer and computer chip set alone did for how many different industries and allowed them to grow as quickly as they did.
Telecommunications, everything.
Yeah.
Just went out the window.
Okay, so that's a good answer, because they were focused mostly on the computer field, chips, things of that nature. Weren't considering that perhaps that industry will not continue its rapid growth and innovation, but other industries, because of that industry, will.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what can we use this for? Outside of just being a computer chip, what can we use it for?
Yeah, and think about it, matching the human genome, right? Without the mathematical power that these systems afford, and you network a bunch of them together. Computing power is a commodity these days.
Okay, so I got to stop you right there. Don't use big words because Paul doesn't understand them. All right, he's just fine with ideas. So just don't use genome or something like that.
The human genome. All right.
Okay, thank you. There you go, Paul.
Speaking of Paul, I want to ask Paul a question because Paul, of course, is also a business broker, an active broker with ABC Brokerages. And real quickly, Paul, what's your website so people can visit you?
My website is centralfloridabusinessbroker.com.
How many of the businesses that you broker, buy and or help people buy and or sell are based on an invention?
Not that many. Most of the businesses that we deal in are service businesses.
Is that typical of a business broker?
It is. But we do come across inventions and companies that have grown inventions through manufacturing is where that usually would end up.
Being an invention, obviously you would need some investment capital to put your idea into production. How difficult has that been, and are there any pitfalls that you could tell people to stay away from? Because anytime you're dealing with money, there's always pitfalls.
Sure. It's a very challenging proposition, especially these days. The capital, I will tell you, capital is available for good ideas. It always has been, even here in Central Florida. But you have to do your homework. It goes back to what we said about all the folks at SCORE and what they offer, and just making sure that the value proposition is tight. You understand your market, you understand your pricing policies, and everything that goes along with building a business. So if you can articulate that well to an investor, or in my case, to the National Science Foundation, who actually funded over $600,000 of research for my first product, that gets a company off to a really good start.
Now, go ahead, Rich. You were going to say.
Pete, Dr. Pete. Isn't there two options for you when you develop something? Number one is to commercially market, manufacture it, and do all that stuff. But number two is to sell the patent rights
and
to somebody who will do it and then pay you for every unit that's sold.
Yeah, that's licensing, right? So you can license your idea. So once you have an idea that there's a market for, you certainly, if you don't want to produce the product, we produce our own products, right? But it's not for everyone. Okay. Manufacturing's not easy, and there's a lot of everything that goes along with building that side of your business.
Manufacturing isn't your business.
No, well, it wasn't to begin with, and we don't have our own manufacturing capability. Our product is built in Florida, but by a bunch of different companies.
Okay. Real quickly, we're going to have to go to the break here in a couple of minutes. But first of all, he was mentioning financing, and we've talked a little bit about this on the show before. SCORE does not provide financing, but for a gentleman like Dr. Pete, can you guide them toward the sources where they may be able to find it?
The inventors are very apt to find financing through government or something like that. Mm-hmm. Dr. Pete, isn't that right?
Yeah, the National Science Foundation.
Right, National Science Foundation, and per se.
Many, and I would say the majority of federal government agencies have a small business fund for small businesses. It's called the Small Business Innovation Research Fund.
Right, for innovation.
Yeah, right.
Not for your normal small business.
Okay. All right, we're coming up on the break, and once again, the guys have pulled in another great guest with Dr. Pete McLendon. And when we come back from the break, we're going to talk to him about one of his latest inventions. And in the meantime, though, Paul, give us a little rundown of the guest list for the next week or two, if you would.
Well, we've got next week, we've got Jeanette Scott, who is a blogger for Jay's Everyday Fashion, and I've been told that she's going to do one heck of a show, and Rich, you'll have to stand in for me because I won't be here next week. But
is she going to do a fashion show for us?
Well, that we don't know.
It'll be very fascinating, though, because she has a very successful blog.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of people out there, that you can reach that way. And what about the following
And then the following week, we've got Jean Newell, who is a boomerpreneur that went into business when she was about 60 years old, and she's going to talk about going into business later in your career.
Yeah, right. A lot of people think that, no, I'm too old to start a business. You're never too old, are you, Rich?
Excuse me?
Well, I don't know.
How would I know that?
I thought I'd go to the source,
Thank you. Okay, that's one. Yep, but it was counting.
All right, don't forget, folks, you are listening to What's the Score, the show designed to help you come up with that winning combination for your business. And to find out more about SCORE, go to scoreorlando.org. That's scoreorlando.org, and access their templates. And once again, we're always interested in suggestions, even guest suggestions. So contact us for that sort of thing at score@nationalec.org. That's score@nationalec.org. And don't forget, for that seminar Tuesday, what time?
6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the National Entrepreneur Center.
In the Fashion Square Mall, and it is free. And what's the title of it again? It
is You, Your Business Idea.
More power.
And how SCORE can help.
Idea. Did y'all get that out there? What's your idea?
All right, so please stick around, folks. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation.
News,
and
I'm
thanks
Michael
for being with us.
Harrington in Washington.
Okay, welcome back to What's the Score? Thanks for being with us again today, folks. I am Christopher Hart of the American Adversaries Radio Show, joined in the studio by Rich Jaeckle and Paul McNally of SCORE. And we have as our guest today Dr. Pete McLendon. And Dr. Pete McLendon is an industrial engineer who is also an inventor. And so now we're going to find out a little bit more.
Gizmo. We should call him Gizmo. There we go.
Dr. Pete, as it were, though, is, as I said, he is an inventor. And how many things have you invented? I mean, just do you keep count, first of all?
No, I don't.
Okay. You're always doing tinkering and coming up with something?
Because think about what an invention really is. It could be something very simple to something very, very complex.
Right.
So I've developed a lot of very simple things and some fairly complex things.
Oh, my God.
And inventions kind of fit into other inventions, right? Like the Orbitouch keyless keyboard that we developed. There are 7 patents on it, a lot of innovation and a lot of invention.
Okay, now that's something that we have kind of teased on the show about. What is this Orbitouch, you called it?
It's a keyboard alternative. So if you don't have full use of your hands, this is a keyboard and mouse combination that still allows you to interface, i.e. type, on a computer.
Well, if you don't have use of your hands, how do you do it?
There are 2 domes that actually slide, and it's a combination of the domes and their positions that allow you to type the characters.
I see.
So this keyboard requires no finger motion or wrist motion. So people with carpal tunnel syndrome, severe enough arthritis, a lot of our veterans who have neuromuscular control issues or use prostheses.
Okay.
You said that some people use their feet.
They do, yes. Okay. And just picture it like 2 joysticks that move they're guided in 8 different directions. The model that we've developed actually has 2 domes for more comfort than moving 2 joysticks, but underneath those domes are basically 2 joysticks that move in 8 directions to type these characters.
Well, now that's fascinating because, and it kind of goes back to what you said earlier about don't invent something that you can't, sell to people, or people wouldn't appeal to people. When Rich first mentioned this gadget to me, I envisioned quadriplegic. That's who would use this sort of thing. But you're telling me that someone who simply has arthritic condition of the wrists would use this sort of thing.
Sure. Or people that wear gloves in factory floors. It's very difficult to type with heavy gloves on. They could certainly use this to input their data right there on the factory floor.
Did you have that in mind when you invented this?
Well, most of the things I did, some I did not. This product is actually being successfully used by children with autism, and that was not on our radar until maybe 5 years ago.
Interesting. So they took it and adopted the idea.
Well, a mother bought it. Their child was doing really well and typing with it, and she called me to thank me for inventing it and making it available, and had a few questions for me.
But she turned around and showed other uses for it.
That's exactly right.
You had not even thought about.
And Rich, I was shocked because usually the conversation goes something like, well, so can you tell me about your son or your daughter? Yes, they have cerebral palsy, or they had an accident, or just limited use of hands, or whatever it may be. And she said, my son has autism, and that was it.
How about that?
Yeah.
And do you actually manufacture the product yourself, your own manufacturing facilities?
We don't own our own manufacturing facilities, but the entire product is manufactured and assembled here in the state of Florida.
Wow.
Dr. Pete, I got to ask you a question. what does your wife do when she gets up in the morning and you say, honey, I turned the toaster into a microwave?
Well, the first thing she usually says is, well, I thought we had a microwave. And why would you do that?
Well, this is new and better.
Yeah, and then if I say something like that, she'll say, oh, well, can I see the manual? And I never had one of those.
Speaking of manuals, obviously, when you invent something, and Rich we more or less went this direction earlier in the show, but you have to be at some point worried about, rights infringement. Mm-hmm. So how difficult has it been for you to patent your ideas?
And defend the patent.
Yeah, well, thankfully, there have been other technologies that I have found online that have been similar over the years. And basically what I would do is reach out to those individuals and make them aware of what we've done and how far we've advanced it and we're in the marketplace and so on, because they might not know. Right? There's nothing that prevents an inventor, if they don't know about our product, from doing something similar and not knowing. So we always try to reach out to them first and let them know that we have this product, it's commercialized, and we have 7 patents on it, and usually that ends it.
Well, I thought the patent office did that for them.
No, our patent, but they might not be pursuing a patent. A lot of inventors just develop something and just get it, it's easy to develop a web page, right? Get it out there and start to try to drum up sales.
Uh-huh.
So they forego the patents.
Why would they forego the patents? Because of the cost on?
Because of the cost, because of the time, and quite honestly, they just don't know.
What is the process to get a patent?
Yeah, my process has changed over the years. So let me tell you the way that I pursued the first patent and then the way I would do it today. The first patent, I basically developed a prototype, got it to work, it typed. And then I took it to a patent attorney. They drafted the patent application. They put in all the legalese and description and so on, handed it back to me to make sure that it read exactly the way it was supposed to read, and it functioned, the device still functioned the way it was supposed to, and so on. The way I do it today is there's an excellent book called Patent It Yourself. Author's name is Pressman. Read that book, write the patent application yourself, take it to an attorney, and for any students that are out there listening, check your own university for an intellectual property attorney. Take it to them. Have them go through it. If you're not comfortable with the process and how it's going, seek out somebody, connect to Rich and Paul here at SCORE and ask them who they would reach out to for a cursory reading of the patent and so on. Get the legalese put into it and then submit it to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office.
That was going to be my question to you guys. Is there someone in the Orlando SCORE office who is familiar with the patent process?
Yeah, there is a patent attorney that we actually have as a volunteer. Mm-hmm. And they can usually advise, this looks good or this application doesn't look bad. They can't write the patent.
Right.
So you, the client, have to write the patent and stuff and get it all set up. And then our counselor can review it for you.
I see.
Now, I got one question here. There's something called the cheap man's patent, where it used to be that you wrote the description and all the specs and everything and mailed it to yourself. So the U.S. government postmarked it on a certain date, which showed that you developed this thing on this date. The poor man's patent, we used to call it.
Yeah, that does not work. Because there's nothing that says I can't steam open that envelope and put in whatever information I want, or not even seal it to begin with, and put in whatever information I want. So that's actually a myth that does not work. Yeah, I know that. I did it.
Well,
the pitfalls.
But here's how you protect your ideas. Instead of doing that, go buy a bound inventor's notebook, right? So you can't pull out a piece of paper. It's not perforated. Pages are numbered, front and back. You jot down your idea, you date it, and you have someone sign it for you, saying, yes, on this date, I read these pages, and here's my signature, and so on. That's what holds up in court, right? It's to first to invent and so on, yes.
Well, that's very cheap alternative, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, again, it doesn't provide you patent protection. It provides you the basis for developing a patent, and if it ever comes back to, who did this first? You go back, and if you have your notebook, chances are the other person isn't going to come in with their notebook and say, oh, well, here's the first email, whatever. That's not admissible. I'm not an attorney, but when I was doing this, that's what I was told. You have to have a bound, numbered page booklet that discloses what you've done, and it has to be
Dated
signed
and everything, right?
Yes,
So is that typically
in pen?
Is that typically standard operating procedure then for inventions that you
For
are
me, yes,
pursuing?
it is now. Yes, me and all my employees, we get it down on paper in pen. When you make a mistake, you put one line through it and continue on. There's no blotting out or erasing or ripping out or anything.
You want to see that, in other words, you want everybody who comes to review it to see exactly how it transpired.
That is correct.
That's why you just put one line through it.
And you have somebody witness it.
Yes.
Is that explained in the book, Patent It Yourself?
It is.
And what's the author's name again?
Pressman.
Pressman.
I think his first name is Stephen.
All right. And that's Patent It Yourself.
Yes.
That's in that just few minutes, you educated me and dispelled myths.
Oh, my God.
That I'd had my whole life, basically, and confirmed some things that I'd heard as well. So obviously, you've learned this through experience, and now know what works and what doesn't. Have you ever been sued for patent infringement, or have had you sue someone for patent infringement?
Unfortunately, I have not. And I always have. I've adopted the philosophy of, if you feel someone is stepping on your toes, big company, small company, whatever it is, consult with your legal team and say, we don't need to get aggressive until we know there's an issue. Let's reach out to them, let them know what we're doing, that we have our patents, and if they want to work together, if they have something that's patentable on their side that adds benefit to both sides, you build those relationships.
Cool.
How long is a patent good for?
Have to ask the patent attorney. All of our patents are utility patents, and it's either 14 years or 17 years. I can't recall, and that's from the date of issue.
So different types of patents have different expiration dates?
I'm not sure. All of ours are utility, and actually the Pressman book outlines that pretty well.
Okay. Actually, the patent just gives you an edge in marketing because it allows you a certain period of time to market your idea out there in the public and, see how it goes.
What's
and
an idea?
I'll tell you later. But it allows you 6 months or a year or something before somebody comes along and tweaks that invention,
right,
and makes it a little bit different, and then remarkets it.
And
so it's just a lead time for you.
Well, and again, our 7 patents, they build on one another. So as you innovate and you develop a keyboard like this, you learn a lot about what the market wants, how it needs to be adapted, and so on. So you just keep layering in the patents.
Okay. When we come back, we're going to talk about how he got his idea from patent to production and onto the market and into people's homes, like the woman with the autistic child. But don't forget, folks, one reason why this gentleman is here today is because radio is such an effective way to communicate with people. And the SCORE guys here know that first and foremost. And if you would like to take advantage of that, you can focus right in on the market that you want. And one of the great ways to do that is to talk to the great folks here at Salem Communications. Bill Files, the station manager, will help you out directly. He'll help you put together a show. Look, if Rich can do it, you can do it, right?
Oh,
Just get together with a couple of folks who are perhaps in the same industry as you, and you guys can pool your resources, and it will really increase your profile and your prestige in the community. And if you'd like to, of course, advertise on radio, that's another great way to reach out to the market that you're trying to tap into. 407-618-1760 is Bill's phone number, 407-618-1760. He's looking forward to helping you out, Rich. Okay, welcome back to What's the Score? Once again, folks, you are listening to the show designed to help you come up with that winning combination for your business and enterprise. And I am Christopher Hart, along with Rich Jaeckle and Paul McNally of SCORE. And today's guest is Dr. Pete McIntire, who is an industrial engineer and inventor. And he's been telling us about one of the latest inventions of his, which is a typewriter, which is basically works on a joystick principle. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. A computer keyboard that eliminates finger motion and wrist motion.
And Rich is over here bragging that he's using it with his feet.
Yeah, but that's 3 you got me today.
Well, not to make light of it, but actually some people are doing that.
That is correct.
Because they don't have any motion or use of their arms and hands.
That is correct.
And people with diminished use of arms and hands can use these devices to communicate. And also autistic children, and can people who cannot verbally communicate in any way, are they using this device?
Well, sure, but they could use a regular keyboard as well.
Okay.
So depending on what this keyboard addresses primarily physical conditions.
Okay. All right.
And now some cognitive with the children with autism and so on.
Okay. Obviously, you didn't just come up with this out of the clear blue sky. This has been sort of a development process. How, though, did you get from idea to marketplace?
The idea was fairly simple. I took 2 cereal bowls and a piece of poster board and 8 colored crayons.
Your poor wife.
Yeah. Well, it was my dissertation committee. This device was actually developed as my dissertation.
Worse.
Yeah. So can you imagine going into a major professor's office with your 8 colored crayons and 2 cereal bowls?
I can imagine the look you might have gotten from it. Yes.
So that was the first prototype to show people the concept, right? And again, I was just looking to see how quickly they got it, whether they understood the purpose behind it, and so on. And joysticks are all over the place, and I thought, I have friends that are electrical engineers and computer engineers, and I can build the housing. And you build your first prototype, you plug it into a computer, it types just a few basic characters, and then you start showing it to people. You start testing it, and as soon as that excitement builds to a point where you have a product that people are willing to pay for, and we can talk about pricing too if you want, but the minute you have a product that has a market and people are willing to pay for it, then you start looking for money. In my case, because I had done so much research on that prototype that was built and my 2 cereal bowls and poster board and 8 crayons, I maybe had $500 invested in it. I had enough, and with the research, I had enough to put together a proposal to the National Science Foundation. And again, the Small Business Innovation Research grant that they offer, you can actually go to the National Entrepreneur Center and get help with writing those as well. They have a phase 1 of up to $100,000, 6 months of time to see if your idea has any merit.
And if it doesn't, it goes home with you into your kitchen?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Put Cheerios in it the next morning.
Yeah. And then after
Dual purpose.
after that research is done, you can apply for a 2-year grant for now up to $750,000 or $1 million, depending on the agency that's funding it.
Wow.
So 2 years of research and $1 million really gets you to a place where you've done a lot of research. The product is probably ready to commercialize or pretty close. And then you have all the key selling points to go out to the investment community, the investor community, to start raising capital. And that's what I did.
And obviously there are investors out there always looking for things of this nature.
And that are well researched. And you have a clear market need identified and people that are willing to pay for it.
Kind of like the Shark Tank, sort of, more or less. First of all, how long does it take normally for that process when you apply for these grants?
About a year.
So don't expect a quick turnaround in the sense that you're not going to get an answer in a month or 2.
That's correct.
Okay. And do you normally have to follow up with more information? Do they come back to you with questions or something of that nature?
Well, once the grant is awarded, you do 6 months of research and submit a final report.
I see.
You retain the intellectual property. In some cases, the government will negotiate with you as to whether or not, if there's a government purpose for it. Yeah. You might have to sell it to them at cost or cost plus a little bit of profit, but there are instances where that happens.
Oh, so the government more or less is acting as a investor/business partner.
Well, again, they know why would a government agency invest in a small business like this? A guy with a crazy idea. Well, this is helping people gain employment maybe for the first time in their life, which helps our tax base. They're also helping the innovation. Where else can this be applied? And just they realize that if this product grows, and it has, think about what happens with the manufacturing I have here in the state of Florida, both on the plastic side and the electronics manufacturing and everything. It just supports an entire ecosystem.
Dr. Pete, when you're going for that grant, do you need to hire a grant writer, somebody to be able to put it in the proper format?
I didn't. And I'll interject here too in saying, with the business plan, I've always suggested to everybody I work with, write your own business plan and write your own grant, because you have to know what goes into it. And anybody that's writing it for you is just going to ask you a bunch of questions anyway that you'd probably save a lot of time just doing it yourself.
Yeah. Put it down on paper. Put your thoughts down on paper.
And it's good to reach out to, again, somebody at the NEC or SCORE to say, hey, here it is. I followed it the best I could. You've done a lot of these. Rich, could you help me understand that I've got all my I's dotted and T's crossed?
Right. And we get it ready for the bank or for investment groups and stuff like that.
Right.
We can't write it for you.
Right.
But we can review it for you and tweak it to get it marketable.
And ask the important questions if there are any holes in it. Hey, did you consider this part of the market? Oh, I didn't even see that.
Okay. What about pricing?
Yeah, you mentioned pricing. How do you come to that?
Yeah. I do a lot of research now. I will give when somebody says, oh, yeah, I would like to have one of those, I would hand them a piece of paper that basically has some electronic devices on it and put our keyboard in that lineup and say, is this priced higher or lower than this product? Higher or lower than this product? Does it add the value over this product, right? So I never ask them directly for a price. I just want to know if they're willing to pay $2,000 for a Macintosh computer and they're used to paying $20 for a keyboard and, a bunch of gadgets in between, you can actually find out where it falls in what they're willing to pay.
The price point.
Yes. And that's been very beneficial because when you ask somebody, so what would you pay for this? Guess what the answer is?
Nothing.
Nothing, right? Because that's what everybody wants to pay.
Sure.
And then the minute you throw a price out to them, well, $399, that's its retail price. They're like, oh, that's way too expensive. Not in every case, but when you start to dig a bit deeper into how they think about, like technologies, other keyboards and computer systems and so on, all this other stuff, you can really get a good beat on what the price should be.
It's like anything else. You've got to sell the value of this. Yep. And what does it mean to me, the consumer?
That's exactly right.
What can I do with this thing to make it worth $300?
Yeah, and the first question that I ask folks is, so what would your life be like if you couldn't use a regular keyboard? What's the value to you? Oh, my goodness, if I didn't have use of a computer or keyboard to that computer, I wouldn't have a job, right? I'm a writer, I'm a programmer, I'm somebody that uses a keyboard often. And if I didn't have a job even for a couple of days, that well exceeds what you're asking for this product.
Paul, let me ask you, as a business broker, I know as a business person, price is always an issue. And as a contractor, basically there aren't set prices like when you go to a store and, this product is $20, that one $30. How difficult is it for business people in general to come up with the correct price to charge?
Well, it's part of the marketing, and we tell people and we teach them in school. You need to create the demand first, and not talk about the price. And the price is only the end result. If there's demand, the price doesn't matter. And you can look at what Steve Jobs did with the iPhone. It was the highest priced phone that was on the market, but he developed it and created a need and a want, so that people didn't matter. It didn't matter. They'd pay the price, they'd find the money, and they'd make it happen. So it's that marketing side, creating the need, creating the want, and then the price doesn't matter. It's secondary.
Dr. Pete, do you manufacture these products yourself? We didn't quite go down this road before.
Yeah. Well, our manufacturing is all done here in the state of Florida.
Okay.
So we have a partner company. It's not owned. It's not a subsidiary of my company.
Okay.
But it's in Winter Haven. They make all of our plastic parts for our keyboard.
Okay.
And we do the same thing with a company in Sanford for electronics. And then we do assemble them in-house.
Okay.
Buy American.
And so you employ a number of people, and a number of people work at other places can count on part of their job at least because of you.
That's correct.
And as you said, that's part of the invention process is that the benefits really do ripple outward.
Yes, they do.
In much more than the sense of the gadget itself.
Right.
Speaking of gadgets, does an invention have to be, technically speaking, a gadget, or can it be an idea, like, say, a game, or I invented a game? Would that qualify?
You mean like a piece of software kind of game?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. You have Angry Birds, right? A really popular game that's out there, and somebody invented that, right? And there's a lot of innovation in it with the way it's adapted, or it's been adapted to the tablets and the iPhones and how they use all the interesting features of the phones.
Intellectual property?
Yeah, you can actually get a patent on software, but it's difficult to enforce because you know how many different ways there are to write the same kind of code in a different language or just very differently and so on. But there are other protections. You can get trademarks and everything. But the best protection you can always get is momentum and inertia for your idea. If you're out, you know your market better than anyone. People know who they're buying from. You've got great customer service. That's the best protection you can hope to have.
They will associate you and your face and your name with your product.
That's correct.
How can people find out more about your product and what you do?
Yeah, our website is www.orbitouch.com, and it's ORBITOUCH.com.
Orbitouch.com. And it's a great innovation, great invention, and we wish you all the luck in the world with it. What are you working on now?
Actually, we're working on another National Science Foundation grant to help people with special needs and disabilities become entrepreneurs. And it was the Orbitouch that kind of put us on that path.
What a great idea, huh, Rich?
Hey, that's
and
great.
We call it inclusive entrepreneurship.
Very good, very good.
Excellent idea.
Catchy title, too. It's kind of like, what's the score?
Speaking of, what's the score? That's going to have to do it for today, folks. We're all out of time, but we will be back next week. And who's the guest again, real quick, Paul, for next week?
Next week, we have got Jeanette Scott, who is a fashion blogger with Jay's Everyday Fashion, and she's going to be a tremendous guest. And Rich, I understand that you're using 2 fingers now on the keyboard. You've stepped it up and doubled your production.
Now, I just usually use my nose.
Don't feel bad. I'm still using 1 finger. The seminar, real quick.
And the seminar will be Tuesday night, this Tuesday, September 9th, 6 o'clock. Your business idea, and how SCORE can help.
And with that idea, I'm out of here.
Okay. Don't forget, folks, that's at the National Entrepreneur Center in the Fashion Square Mall. And go to scoreorlando.org to find out more about SCORE.